After leaving the winery location, we rounded the corner and found these absolutely gorgeous umbrellas in all sorts of assorted colors, so we had to take the quick opportunity before the restaurant opened up to snap off a couple portraits. Let's see what we came up with. So I shot these images with my 35mm lens. My aperture was at f1.4 to try and blur out the background just a little bit, and 1/500th of a second was my shutter speed, and again my ISO super low because we are in bright daylight at 100. So I like where this is going. Unfortunately, a mistake that I made is I did not realize those bright orange traffic cones and that bright yellow caution tape that were just to the right of Ashley. It's not necessarily a deal breaker, it's something we could fix in Photoshop, but again, I always recommend scanning your frame, paying very close attention to your composition, especially when you're shooting as wide as a 35mm. But other than that, I really like this pose. I like the depth of field. The focus is very clearly on Ashley's face, and this is a pretty good image to start with. Oh yeah, that looks good. Let me just check my exposure because we changed locations. Oh, I gotta show you these real quick. I like that. Let's get a couple more, just like that. It looks fantastic. So here's another horizontal shot. I really like the cascading look of the umbrellas as they go off into the background. Ashley has a very natural pose with that nice arm leading up to her face, and it is a little bit bright in the background, so I think we could have stood to use a slightly faster shutter speed, and again, we're still running into those pesky traffic cones, which again, we could fix in Photoshop later if we really want to. Great. I'm just gonna kind of keep getting lower right here. Yeah, the color and the umbrella and that yellow dress looks great. Fantastic. All right, let's do some verticals. So here's where I decided to crouch down a little bit so I could get a different perspective on these umbrellas. It's always good to switch up your angle, whether it's a high angle, a low angle, moving yourself around left, right, just to get a different perspective on the environment and on your model. Now, a side point that I'd really like to bring up is at some point during this shoot at the umbrellas, something went wrong with my 35mm lens, and it was telling me it was focusing, but it really wasn't. So this image is not quite as sharp as I would have liked it. The focus was off by a couple inches, but it's a passable image. You'll notice in a couple of my future images with the 35mm lens, something was wrong with the focusing mechanism, and the lens pretty much doesn't work anymore, just out of the blue. But you'll have that happen on shoots, and I highly recommend bringing multiple lenses with you on a shoot, because if you happen to break one or one decides to malfunction, you don't want to lose all of your images, and also periodically check that your images are absolutely sharp. If I would have checked a little bit sooner that Ashley's eyes were absolutely sharp by zooming in on my viewfinder, I may have realized a little bit earlier in the shoot that the lens had died during the shoot. Let's do some verticals. That looks great. Let me get my focus. And these will be full body. I like that. All right. Now you can see we've backed off just a little bit to get a nice head-to-toe shot. Again, our background is a little bit bright, but I started to realize those orange traffic cones and tried to hide them in the composition behind the umbrellas, behind the chairs and the table, and they're a lot less distracting. I like this image a lot better. You can see more of the fence, more of the environment, and of course, those absolutely gorgeous umbrellas. And I'm gonna get a couple, just the shins up. Fantastic. And then bring your chin up a little bit. Great. And to finish up the quick amount of time I had at this location, I moved in a little bit tighter again, once again cropping out those horrible orange traffic cones in camera. I definitely recommend doing as much cropping in camera and zooming with your feet. That's a technique you're gonna have to use when you're shooting prime lenses. You don't have that zoom function in the camera, so you will have to move around with your feet and move forwards and backwards to be able to zoom with your lens. Also, cropping in camera is saving as much resolution as possible because every time you crop in Lightroom or Photoshop, you are getting a lower resolution image. It also helps train your eye when you're on location to look for pesky things like bright orange traffic cones, and that will save you so much work in the future. All right, let's get Lewis in here before we get kicked out. I think those look awesome.
All right.
You ready? So that was the limited 2 minutes I had at the umbrella. Let's take a look and see what Lewis came up with his telephoto lenses.